How's everybody doing? Is everybody out there? I'm here today. We're doing the special MAGA Bytes today, actually, that is going to be for everybody. And MAGA Bytes is my live podcast. I do pretty much at least once a week. Sometimes we do more. Like a couple of weeks ago, I think we did for the elections. We were doing like 2 or 3 in one day. And it's typically exclusively for members of Maximus Premium. And the Max Bytes are for everybody, and they're positive messages meant to encourage. MAGA Bytes is where I answer questions and we talk about a variety of topics, and it's just a full-length podcast. So anyways, I'm doing this for everybody. So it's open to anyone who wants to tune in, who's on my channels, and I will upload it later to YouTube. So anyways, I hope everybody's having a wonderful day, and I am joined by my sidekick, by the magnificent, by the wonderful, the fabulous.
Come on, keep them coming.
The fabulous, the master of disaster, the one, the only, the Sicilian stallion, Roxy Balboa. How you doing, Rox? You there, Rox?
Happy Premium Day.
Happy Premium Day. How you doing? Okay.
Good. I just turned my volume down. I'm sorry. Because if I don't have any kind of technical problem, it's not another day.
Please. I was sitting here and I was just going to myself, okay, she's having an audio problem already. Okay, great. Everything's normal then. So we're good. We're good if that's the case.
Exactly. It's a normal day. I'm doing great. How are you doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was wonderful. It was really great. We had a great time, and it was very peaceful, and it was very restful, and it wasn't long enough.
Yeah.
I kind of sat there and I went, oh, this should have gone on for, a couple of weeks, really. That would have been nice, but it was really peaceful. The turkey was fantastic. This was actually the best turkey I'd had probably in like 5 years. It was really good. I mean, I kept going. I ate turkey for I'm being honest. I ate turkey for like 2 more days. So like 3 days in a row I had turkey. And then I kind of went off and I had something else, and then I went back to turkey. So I ate pretty much all the leftovers, which was really good. And it was, it was good food, good company, good conversation, good times. Just
that's what it's about.
Just a great time. That's what it is. It's about family and friends, and we had a great time. And I can't complain. I mean, I really couldn't complain. It was I would say it's probably the best Thanksgiving I had in a few years, since before COVID. So that was really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you get comfortable just eating all day, and then having nothing to do but relax.
It's funny because when I eat turkey, right? I don't know about everybody else. I get lethargic afterwards, so it's like
everybody
I eat some
does.
turkey.
Isn't that the tryptophan or something in it?
It's L-tryptophan or something like that. It's an amino acid that is like a natural inducer for sedative or something, and its effect on you. And I know what you're talking about. And so it's like, that kind of like tires you out, and it always does. It kind of makes me like, oh, okay, I got to go to sleep. You know what I'm saying? So every time I eat turkey, I just doze off, and you have a glass of wine with it, and it's like,
forget about it.
Yeah, I'm out. Boom, gone. My cousins come over, try to wake me up. Wake up! And I'm like,
you're snoring.
I'm snoring there. I'm in the theaters. I'm just sitting there, and we've eaten. I'm like snoring, and I don't really. No, I don't really. That I know of. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I don't think I snore. I hope I don't. I gotta ask somebody. I gotta ask people that. Can you tape me, please? See if I snore. Does anybody out there snore?
Yourself.
I could, right? I don't know if I'll waste time doing that. I don't want to waste the virtual tape on that. I don't know. That's kind of, I don't know.
Well, you know what? I mean, if nobody's there to hear it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess not. Boy, we got a crowd today. How's everybody doing out there? What's going on? We got a crowd today.
Yeah.
Keep coming in. No, it's how have you been? What's been going on with you?
I'm good. I echo your sentiments. I had a great Thanksgiving. It was a wonderful time of rest and reflection and peace and going into 2023 with the same mindset.
Well, we've got a lot in store for 2023. There's going to be a lot of things. Like, I think some people been like contacting me and going like, what are we going to be doing in 2023? What's going on? I mean, what are Republicans going to do and stuff? And I'm like, there's, because everyone's kind of, I think, still maybe I think a lot of people have already processed the election results. And so it's like, okay, where do we go from here? Well, we got the House. That's like the primary objective was to get the House. We got the House. It's still not over with the Senate. I mean, I really isn't, because if Walker wins this month in a few days, if he wins that runoff election, we're at a 50-50 split. But are we? Because the reality is that you have Joe Manchin sitting there thinking about switching parties, and every Republican's working behind the scenes to make that happen. Now, the odds of it happening, I think, are probably like we have like 1 chance in 4 of him actually doing it, because he's a bit of a gutless guy. But it could happen. It happened in 2001. That was the last time that was the last time that a switch in a party resulted in a chamber change. So, as far as the majority party.
Does it really matter if he changes parties? I mean, as long as he's voting along our lines, right?
Well, it does matter for majority control, because he would have to caucus with the GOP to actually give us control of, Mitch McConnell, or whoever the Republican leader is going to end up being. It's going to be Mitch McConnell, of course it is. But I mean, we actually have to have 51 votes for that. And that's that's like the first order of business, is the majority party and the minority party choosing its leadership. And the majority leader becomes the leader of the Senate. So we need that 51st vote. Now, he could switch parties at any time. It would behoove him to do it now, or do it in the next few weeks. And he may still do it sometime next year. But that's something that I'm not pinning a lot of hope on that. And so by all means, everybody, I'm not saying that Joe Manchin's going to switch parties, most definitely. I'm just saying that it is something like if the Republicans had won the Senate outright, I did say last year, if that was to happen, that he would switch parties. And yes, that would probably be in his back. That was probably something he was looking at. Excuse me. But the reality is that he probably won't switch parties. That's why I said it's like a chance in 4. But there's a chance. And so, it is something that you'd like to have that vote. And if he was to do that, it'd be a coup de grace. I mean, the Democrats would have had the rug pulled from underneath their feet, and we would have ended up taking control of both chambers. So I'm not losing hope on that completely. It's like you don't ever give up. And the fact is that we've got the House of Representatives, and we are 1 seat away from taking the Senate, or 2 if you looking at the Warnock race. But for whatever it's worth, guys, the only polls that have been out, the polls are worthless, but they have Walker ahead by 1 point. So you can take those with a grain of less than no salt. I mean, there's like pretend you have no salt in the food. It's just toss that away for whatever that's worth. But it's not over yet. So I wouldn't at all just discount that. But it could happen. And anyways. Look, we have a lot in store because the investigations that are going to be going on. I mean, think about it. We're at the point where we're going to actually impeach or have an impeachment inquiry into a sitting member of the presidential cabinet. That hasn't happened since, I think, 1870s, like 1876 or something. So, that's the Secretary of Homeland Security. And that's just the beginning. I mean, we may end up impeaching numerous officials of the Biden cabinet. Now, of course, impeachment's not any good unless you actually get conviction in the Senate. That won't happen, but it does go on their records, and it does illuminate and highlight publicly a lot of the problems and the unconstitutional things that the administration has done. The big enchilada, of course, is Biden himself. Will they impeach him or not? And I believe they will eventually. I just don't think that's going to be the first order of business. So we'll see when we get there on that. I'm just jumping into politics. I hope that's not boring you.
Yeah, well, I'm sure this is what's on everybody's mind, right? They want to know, like, what next?
Yeah,
what's in store?
Yeah, well, those are I think the impeachment inquiries is going to be a big thing that's going to be coming up. I think the investigations into the Biden family, his personal, conduct, his son, of course, is going to be the focus of. That's a separate series of investigations. The House investigations, in my opinion, have always been the most destructive. As far as you would rather have the Senate go after you than the House, because the House has a lot more resources and a lot more manpower. It's a bigger chamber. And that sounds silly, right? I'm saying resources. It's like, well, they get paid. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about they typically have just larger committees that can't, because they have a larger number of staff, and they just have more. They have more representatives. So you end up with, like you can have multiple committees, and the Republicans control the committees, and they can control the makeup of the committees, as you can see. I mean, McCarthy's said that certain people aren't going to be they're going to be allowed on certain committees. So because they have the majority, they can decide who sits on which committee. Remember, Nancy Pelosi decided who was going to sit on the January 6th committee. So, that's how much power the speaker has, or the head of the majority party. So
so it's so great that we have the House on our side, right? But the problem is we need to keep the momentum going.
Yes, we do.
And keep our representatives, because I know a lot of people, and this is what we've heard, is they're like, yeah, even though we have the House, we still have to deal with a lot of rhinos, that are in there that say they're going to do something and then they're never are going to do something. So, I mean, how could we ensure that they're actually going to be doing what they're saying they're going to do?
Yeah, well, you can't be. And I mean, they're ultimately, at the end of the day, like I said in a tweet yesterday and a post on the channel, I mean, just looking at it, the Senate Republicans are a bunch of gutless fish. Not all of them, but a good portion of them. And I don't have, like, there's elements in the GOP which are just they've always been utterly disgusting, and I just don't like those people. So I mean, you can't be certain they're going to actually follow through all the time, but the House is much better. We have a large working plurality within the GOP conference. So the Freedom Caucus is oversized, and they have a lot of influence. We have a lot better position now than we did when the Tea Party revolution took place in 2010, in my opinion. So the House is more conservative now than it was 12 years ago. Even though we have a smaller working majority, we have a better Republican caucus in there. I mean, look at it. It was like 150, 60, 70 members of the House 2 years ago voted not to confirm the electors from certain states, including Kevin McCarthy. He was one of the votes not to confirm. So a lot of people forget that. I don't know why McCarthy doesn't bring that up much, but he should talk more about the fact that he was one of the people voting against Biden's certification 2 years ago, after the riots on January 6th, like that evening. He was still voting against it. Now, of course, you can say and dismiss it. Well, Max, that's political posturing. Who the heck cares? And I'm like, well, you could say that about everything then. You could just say right down the list, it's always, people just doing it for ulterior motives. But,
somebody changed their vote after the riot, right?
Quite a few people and did change their vote in the Senate. I forgot. I think it was like 6 of them decided to switch their votes. They had said they were going to vote with Ted Cruz, and then they switched their votes because of the riot. They just used that as an excuse.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I wouldn't have done that. I would have just Ted Cruz at least held firm and still voted the way he did. But
yeah. And a lot of people forget that.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. And that's why you got to always keep things in perspective and try to keep an open mind and be objective. Don't get, like tied down and thinking this or that or this or that. The great thing is that you could just say the Biden agenda is completely gone. There's nothing else he can do for the rest of his term. Like, he's never going to get anything. The only thing he can get, he has to compromise. Like, they have to sit together and get him to move to the center to get any meaningful piece of legislation through if he wants to do something like balance the budget, which they won't do, because this is not the 1990s and nobody cares about balancing the budget anymore. Neither do Republicans, for that matter. So, you know, you don't hear a lot of Republicans on the far right talking about balancing the budget. That was a big topic for Republicans for decades, right? I think from like as early as the Reagan era. And they just don't talk about it anymore. That was a part of the contract with America in the 90s. And so, you know, these guys today, there are things about them that I just shrug my shoulders and I'm like, yeah, well, whatever, we'll see. But I think the good thing is we have allies in charge now. If they're not exactly like us, they're not exactly MAGA, all of them, at least we've got friends in charge, and that's a good thing. And you'd rather have that than have the Democrats in charge, you know. So
well, even with the Democrats in majority, he really couldn't get anything done.
No, he couldn't. I mean, the biggest thing he got done, you know, was the mini BBB, right? I think that was it. And that was really it, right? I mean, didn't he also get the infrastructure bill went through as well last year? Remember, everybody was screaming about the infrastructure bill and they thought that was the end of the earth. And as we know it, everything was, and the Republicans compromised on it. I said not to really worry about it. I also said about half of it was probably some good stuff in it, and then half of it was garbage, or a little more than half of it was garbage, and that's probably still about right. And I don't think nothing really has changed except we basically blew up the deficit with it and increased, and that was one of the things that drove up inflation. But it wasn't anything that really, you know, I mean, it was just going to destroy us as we know it. So that was basically Biden's only things he's gotten through. And so, you know, and the mini BBB, which I said was always going to pass, I was surprised when it looked like it was actually dead, because I really thought they were going to get something through. And then they went back to it and they resurrected it and they got part of it through. But again, it was payoffs. And actually that's worked. If Manchin ends up switching parties, you can point back to the way he was backstabbed. What the heck is that? I just created a new word. Backstabbed in the aftermath of that, because you know he was used. He let himself be used, and they did that. And that was that. They got that through. So, anyways, everybody, welcome again to MAGA Bytes, and I'm your host Max, and I'm here with Roxy, and we are doing our full-length podcast, and we do this every week for members of Maximus Premium. So if you want to join Maximus Premium, you want to join today. Why is that, Rox?
Because we have a coupon code for December. So that's going to be going on from December 1st to the 6th, I believe. And it is code Max Attack for 30%
Max
off.
Attack. I love it. I love it. Max Attack. So if you use Max Attack on my website, www.maximus, the number 4evr.com, you can sign up right there under plans for I almost forgot for a second, Maximus Premium, and you put in the coupon code Max Attack and you will get 30% off. It's like a Black Friday sale, and that's actually what we're doing for members. So a lot of people have already taken advantage of that. So welcome to the new members, and you guys are just welcome to do that. We'd like to have you and try it out for a month. You're going to have until the 6th to do it, and we hope you join us. So do you have some questions for me from members?
We always have questions, and you guys on the line, if you have any questions, drop them in Unchained, and we'll pick them up and we'll answer them too. But we have some of the ones that people have left earlier, so let's get into those first. Sound good?
Okay, sound good to me.
All right. Is Arizona gone forever now that they're getting away with all their fraud, and how do we fix this?
Yeah, well, you know, I know a lot of people are depressed about Arizona. No, nothing's ever gone forever. Even California is not gone forever. And we've certainly seen in the last election that California and New York are alive and well. The Republicans there are alive and well. They're actually doing better in those two states than they're doing in states like Arizona and Nevada. No, they're not gone forever, and neither is Arizona. I think Arizona is just going through one of its evolutions. I mean, it's a state, like I've mentioned several times to members and people that have attended my seminars, it's a state with a strong Democratic background to it, a lot of history with the Democratic Party going back to the Civil War. And it swings at times. It just has a very slow swing. It takes a long time for that pendulum to go back and forth. It was very kind of like, well, the early part of the 20th century was very blue. And then with the rise of Barry Goldwater, it started to become red, and it was sort of purplish. and then it became very red during the 80s and 90s, but still locally had a lot of Democratic politicians in charge, and then finally became like blood red in the late 90s, but not not very conservative. That didn't equate to conservatism, and it's sort of, they have a very strong McCainite Republican old Goldwater wing to the Republican Party there, and that means the voters themselves. So it's kind of an awkward state. They do split their vote. They have a history of doing that. They split their vote again this time, and you can see that with some of the other races. And I mean, one of the ways to look at this is that Kerry Lake got more votes than Masters got. So it's important to recognize, I mean, people that voted for Kerry Lake also voted for Kelly, and people that voted for Kelly voted for Kerry Lake. Just keep that in mind. I mean, there's no arguing with that. That's a fact. So the state they're very different. The people are very different there. And so you get states like that where they don't just vote along. They have a large independent group of voters, and those voters will swing and they'll vote different sides. And then you have the problem, which is what you had with Kerry Lake and which she's been alleging. And we'll see where that goes. And I wish her well, and I support her 1,000%. But, I mean, I would never say it's gone for good. I would never say it's gone for good. And I think that, the people there, the Republican Party there just needs to reorganize and start planning for the future and, figure out, okay, beat the Democrats at their own game. That's the way I would look at it.
Well, that's good for the follow-up question, because they want to know, like, what are the Arizona state legislators like regarding everything going on? Are they fire-breathing Republicans, or are they more like do-nothing rhinos?
Well, from what I understand, they're kind of like a mixed bag of do-nothing rhinos and with some really hot-headed MAGA types in there. I mean, they're, and I don't mean that hot-headed in a negative sense, just, lack of a better way of putting it. They're just, you have a kind of a blend. I don't believe that the state legislature's in, any way bad in Arizona, but I'm not that familiar with it. So, it's like, yeah, I mean, they could possibly, they've passed a lot of good legislation, as I taught in the seminars, and not as right-wing as, say, Texas has. The Texas state legislature is much more far right-wing. The Florida state legislature is a little more right-wing. It depends on how you look at it, but they're not wholly bad either. It's just, they can be improved. Let's put it like that. They have a very small majority too, by the way.
All right. So moving on from Arizona, will the Marriage Act likely be struck down by the Supreme Court as an unconstitutional burden upon religious freedom?
It may be, in part. I think in part they would be a narrow decision on those grounds. There's a chance. It depends on what the challenge is, and I'd have to see the challenge, and then I would have to witness the oral arguments. And if I could do that, I could give you an exact opinion of probably how the decision's going to come down. I would just need to hear the justices speak at an oral arguments, and I will cover that when it inevitably happens, which will probably be as soon as next fall. It won't probably happen anytime this term. It'll probably happen sometime late next year, where they have oral arguments after the next term starts. But yeah, I mean, and I think I kind of like looking way ahead. It'll probably be a narrow opinion, primarily targeting or clarify certain parts of the law, which may impact people with religious beliefs.
Yeah, so you're going to be tracking that closely, which is another reason why to join Premium, because these are important.
Join Premium. No, truly, these are the things we do talk about in Premium, where I'm like a lot more open and a lot more specific and a lot more broad. So definitely reach out to Roxy. If you're interested, you can get a discount, today, and
even people that want to learn about it in more detail, that, like how you just broke it down, where it depends on what they bring, to the Supreme Court, what their arguments are. And, people need to understand the process and all that. So even if you have questions on it, Premium's a great place to ask them and to learn about it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, one of the biggest popular things I do with Premium is I answer a lot of questions in the garage. So anyone that posts a question, I try to answer everybody's question. And when I sit down to do that, I'll go through and it's like, I believe it's like Julie said about it. It's like Max does these mini masterpieces, these mini essays, if you would.
Jess said that, yeah. Your little mini masterpieces.
Yeah, I never forgot that. That was so cute. So, I was like, well, but I sit down there and I give these little lessons, and it's like being in class with me almost around the clock. I mean, sometimes I'm more active than others. Obviously, it depends on the week, the day, and the time, and what's going on in the world. But that's kind of like a cool thing you don't really get with others is like, yeah, I'll actually sit there and engage with you in a virtual conversation. So, and that's not just one time, that goes on every day. So
yeah,
almost every
and the
day,
group
so.
And the group of people in there are extraordinary.
We have some really great people in there, some really high IQs. That is such a great group. You become part of a network that's growing of just outstanding guys and gals that really know their stuff, and they're real great patriots. So I have a lot of fun engaging with them. So so definitely want to consider joining, and we're expanding the benefits to Maximus Premium in the new year. So you guys are going to have, the members that are listening in right now are going to have a lot of new features coming up next year as well. So that's going to be kind of cool. We're looking forward to that anyways.
Merch,
access to a lot more cool stuff. Merch.
I'm pushing for the merch, guys. I've heard your cries.
Oh my gosh. The demand for merchandise. It's funny because everybody's been talking about merchandise to me for over a year, and I have never ever been interested in it. And then finally it's just like, okay, enough emails, enough messages, enough people bringing it up. They want it. So I'm like, okay. And I've just been taking, I think you've been taking notes as to how many requests for specific things. And it's like, okay, we've got a list of merchandise that we're going to put out. And so you guys will have access to that. And that's kind of cool.
And we've been given great ideas. I mean, some of the stuff that people have come up with is just the coolest thing ever.
It's like, it's funny with the companies we work with. It's like, this is pretty cool. They go, that's actually downright cool. I mean, I like that idea. I'm like, yeah, well, I didn't come up with it. One of my fans did. So it's like, okay, it's cool. So let's do it. All right, let's do it. So yeah. It's cool. It's cool.
No, lots of great stuff that's going to be coming down the pipeline. But okay, so let's dive back into it. If the House takes out funding for things like IRS agents or for special counsel, can the Senate put the funding back in?
Yeah, they can, but then the House has to re-vote on it. So the way it works is this, and I've taught this again in my civic seminars that I do. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand about the way that the Congress functions is both chambers have to approve or vote on the exact same legislation. There can't be any changes. If there's an amendment or a change, it has to go back to committee. It has to go back, then when it's got to be after it's passed, and it's got to be sent back to the previous chamber or the other chamber, and it has to go into committee, and they have to decide on it, or they can just bring it up for a floor vote. They don't have to have a committee vote. Depends on their rules, but that chamber nevertheless has to approve it. So they have to approve the changes. So it can't just be like the House passes something without the funding for the IRS agents, and then the Senate sticks it back in and it goes to Biden's desk. It doesn't work that way. They both have to agree on the funding for the IRS agents. I'm using that as an example.
Oh, that's a great way to explain it. Definitely. And don't forget, on the topic of your civic seminars, you have a really great seminar coming up in January.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So my next big seminar, which I've been working on for weeks, is going to be probably my biggest civic seminar ever. This one here, I've had a lot of requests for about, I'd say about a year. Again, I think it was last December. And so we're doing socialism versus capitalism. And, it's really going to be great. It's not going to just be on the history of the ideologies and their competitive beliefs and all this other kind of stuff. It's also going to be teaching you how to, in a sense, you'll be able to pull away how to argue with socialists. And it's a great way to introduce your kids to these topics because they face them in schools all the time. So yeah, Civics Maximus 501. Socialism versus Capitalism is going to be on the 2-year anniversary of my first civics seminar, and that's going to be January 20th to the 21st. And we're going to have a lot of interesting people there. So there's going to be a lot of people that have already pre-registered for it. This is going to be it's probably going to end up being my biggest seminar or close to it. And we'll have some interesting guests there as well, I'm counting on. So it's going to be kind of cool. So you guys, if you're interested in pre-registering, contact any of the angels. You don't just have to contact Roxy. You can contact Julie, Jess, whoever, Jackie, and just ask them to put you down for it. And because they are people that are already reserving their seats for that. So
and this is a great seminar for, young adults, teenagers.
Yes. Yeah. It's going to be great.
They don't really teach this stuff anymore in school.
Well, I have, I've actually, that's the thing. They don't teach these teachers don't want to go near these topics. And if they do, they tend to be socialist themselves or socialist leaning and whatnot. And, someone has to do it. So I just suggest you guys, if you're interested in these topics and you want to have you're welcome to debate with me too during the seminar, just come on in. Yes. It's an open Socratic discussion. So.
Yeah, no, this one's going to be great. A lot of people are looking forward to it. So again, contact me or any of the Angels Warriors to pre-register. We are pre-registering right now. We'll get you on the list. We'll get you taken care of, as always. All right. Can the union still strike even if Congress passes a bill?
Well, a union depends. If the union it depends on their bylaws. I mean, a union, if they've written down in their bylaws, in their contracts, they have when they can strike. If it's written that they can strike at any particular time, or whether or not they get their terms, or they can strike. But I mean, if there's a restriction on it, and then they can't. That's an internal thing, though. So it all depends. I mean, do I think they're going to strike? I don't. It depends on whether they get their terms and whether they feel they've been given the short end of the stick. So, it's just totally up in the air. I mean, if they do strike, I think it's going to push prices further up, and it's going to make, inflation is going to increase and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how good that's going to be for the country. It's probably not going to be too good. I also think there'll be a shortage of supplies in certain areas, not in all areas, but yeah, I mean, they can strike if they, if their own internal rules are being followed.
And I mean, how enforceable? Like you said, I mean, they have to come to terms with it, right? It has to be like an agreement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. What impact, if any, does this FTX scandal have on Dems and or the Republicans?
I don't know. I haven't been following it. That's something that doesn't really, kind of like interest me too much. And I know some people are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, it's a big scandal. They ripped off people's money." But what do you expect? They're a bunch of liberal Democrats. My opinion is that I think it hurts the reputation of certain far left-wing Democrats or liberals, but not to the extent that it's going to actually do some sort of long-term damage to their party, because the press isn't really covering it. And I think it's going to be forgotten in a few months. Frankly, I don't think we're going to be talking about it. I mean, it's just something that's, you can't, these type of scandals. Look, we're such a polarized environment right now. Okay, there are people that still think that Donald Trump is a Russian spy. Okay, half the country thinks that, or maybe a little less than half the country. All right. Do you actually think those people are going to ever believe the truth if it's staring them in the face? People believe lies. Hey, guess what? It's like Bill Murray said, people are morons. Not all people. He was talking about a certain segment of the population, but they're just morons, and they'll believe anything, and it's like, so 1 in 2 people hate Donald Trump, utterly hate him. Don't know why, just utterly hate him. They don't even know why. You ever see those videos?
Because other people say so.
Yeah, other people say something and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I guess that's true." I mean, they're just like they're just stupid, and you can't rationalize with a stupid person. They just, because they've never used reason before. So, it's like, you ever debate with a liberal? it's like, they're either totally ignorant and don't understand anything you're saying, or they're so full of hate that there's no rationalizing with them. In any case, they're a moron. And it's like, that's it. You kind of make the sign of the cross and you walk away. And so, that's, so as far as a scandal actually moving the needle, however legitimate it may be, they're just not going to accept it. They're still talking about Russia, and they're still talking about how the 2016 race was rigged. And then when any time the right, wing brings up something, that's, I think, at least should be open for debate, as Elon Musk is opening up Twitter to allow it for that debate. People are starting to debate these things more openly now, thank God. They go, no, you can't say that about 2020. You can't say that about this. You can't. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's hypocrisy. You should be able to, that's fine. If they want to question the 2016 election, they can question it. They should be allowed to question it. That's their prerogative as an American. But again, you have people that are just we're so polarized. Everybody doesn't talk to each other anymore. And you can't have an open and honest dialogue with a lot of people. And so, it is what it is. That's what I think about the FTC. I guess I did have an opinion on it after all.
Shocker. All righty. Is it really possible the Dems can get control of the Speaker of the House? This has been causing a lot of confusion.
The Speaker of the House? No. It's not. I mean, it's possible, yeah, but it's probably not. It's not going to happen. The only way that would happen is if the Dems can muster 218 votes. They're not going to get 218 votes. There's no way that the 5 or so Republicans who are just going on television every day or on these podcasts saying they hate Kevin McCarthy are going to vote for a Democrat. They're just not going to do that. I mean, that would be the epitome of a hypocrisy again. It's like, how can you vote? So if you're stuck between Kevin McCarthy and Jeffries, who do you think's more conservative? That's going to be your choice. Okay. So I'm just saying that to everybody. It's not that I think he's the best choice, McCarthy. That's going to probably be unless, of course, in conference, they come up with an alternative that you can get a majority of the Republican caucus to support, or at least 218 of them to support. Because you see, the way it works is this, okay? The Republicans are going to meet behind closed doors, and they are going to choose their nominee for Speaker. So before it ever goes to the floor, the Republicans have already chosen the Speaker before it's a public vote. So it's a done deal before they walk out of the room. So they will have multiple ballots, as McCarthy said. That's true. They're probably going to have a couple of ballots because at first certain Republicans won't vote for him, right? Then as they make, as he makes overtures, as they do some wheeling and dealing, he will gain votes, okay? And that's politics. Now, he may not get the votes. I'm not saying he would definitely be Speaker. I'm just saying that he has the advantages with him because he has the most votes. And then there can always be an alternative. That happened in 1994. Okay. Newt was the minority whip. He wasn't the minority leader. The minority leader was intended to become the next Speaker, was over him. Okay. He was just the whip. He wasn't even an assistant to the minority leader. He was an assistant in a sense, but he was just the whip. And in conference, Newt had such a strong following from the freshman class that was coming in of Republicans that he was able to leapfrog over the minority leader and challenge him for the speakership, and he got the votes. And that was one of the reasons why that's another reason why they called it the Gingrich Revolution. Okay, so he actually wasn't supposed to be Speaker. But he was the author of the Contract with America, which they ran on. So they had a sense of loyalty to him. So it helped him rise like overnight to this powerful position where he became like Prime Minister of the Republican Party. And so, it's legendary. That can happen again, but I don't see any Newts, and I don't see that actually happening. All we really get is these, Andy Biggs, or they don't have the following. Like they were not the architects of the GOP takeover this year. There was a Contract with America Part 2 or whatever, a commitment to America, but it never had the gravitas, which is probably one of the reasons why they didn't get more seats and win more races. This is the problem with the Republican Party, is their messaging has been off. They've always been on defense. Their strongest outpouring really was back in 2010 with the Tea Party revolution as a party, absent Donald Trump. In the absence of Donald Trump, that was like their strongest, in the last 12 years, their turnout. But you nevertheless, I think at the end of the day, you have to remember, I think this is what's going to happen. Before they hit the floor, they're going to have the votes. Now, they could possibly go to the floor without the votes. Then all bets are off. That's when this possible scenario happens. If they walk out there and McCarthy or whomever doesn't have the 218 backing them, I mean, it's a possibility that Andy Biggs gets enough of the vote in conference to block McCarthy. The party splits, goes out on the floor, and then the Democrats can field their candidate, Jeffries. Every Democrat will vote for him, so they just have to peel off a few moderate Republicans. That's what people are talking about. That is a possibility. That could happen. But that's why it's essential to wrap this thing up, like MTG said, and a number of other MAGA Republicans. We got to get behind, Kevin, because we can't let that happen if that's the only alternative. If they're in conference and Kevin says, "Oh, I don't have the votes, I'll stand down," and he backs an alternative that everyone can agree on, that's fine too. It's just that we have to make sure when we go out on the floor, we have 218 votes for that Republican.
Now, if they agree to vote on somebody like in the chambers and then they come out, they can change their vote on the floor when the actual voting takes place, right?
Yeah, I mean, they could, but they're probably not going to. I mean, there'll be if they don't have. No, I mean, look, you're going to have 218 committed Republicans before you go out on the floor. Yes, of course, they could lie and then they get out on the floor and switch their votes, but that would be the end of their political career.
Yeah, it's bad luck.
Yeah, I mean, where are they going to go? I mean, forget it. They would be ostracized from the GOP. They wouldn't have any friends. They might as well resign their seat at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't do things like that. No, you don't do things like that.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to Georgia. Why do you think President Trump is not doing a rally for Herschel to help him with the runoff election?
Well, I think that's a tactical move. I think the Walker and Trump has probably spoken, and Walker probably doesn't want him coming down there. I think it's pretty clear that Trump has some issues with Georgia Republicans for some reason, and he's betting, I'm guessing, Walker is betting, and the Republicans in Georgia are betting on Kemp helping Walker win this thing. And that may sound totally crazy to all of us, but I can see where they've got a point, because Kemp is much more popular across the board in Georgia than really any other Republican official. So, if he can, and he's all in for Walker, and as long as he's all in for Walker, I think at this stage, look, I don't think a Trump rally is going to really make a bit of difference in Georgia, frankly, at this point. We're so close to the runoff. It's really going to be the Kemp machine. They have to put Walker over, and we'll see. And it's hard to say whether or not that's a smart move or not. I mean, look, rallies themselves do not win you elections. They never have. You have to actually have a good ground game. And Kemp has an excellent machine in place that he built. Obviously, it's a winning machine. And if he's throwing it all behind Walker, I think that's a sound decision. I think bringing Trump in would be okay, but I think that maybe Trump has decided, possibly after talking to Walker, that maybe he should just stay out of there and let it just ride out and see what happens. I'm just guessing. I don't know. That's just one point of view. I mean, of course, if you feel free to disagree with me, it's fine. I mean, I'm just trying to rationalize why he's not going there. And I can only see it as they have had some sort of conversation. Yeah.
I mean, there could be a strategy behind it, or maybe not. I mean, Trump gets a little moody with these things, so you don't know.
It's true.
But all right, let's talk about the G20 greenlighting international vaccine passports. Should we be concerned about? Okay.
Go ahead. Not going to happen. I mean, it's not going to affect us. Let's put it like this. It's not. Well, yeah,
that's the question. Is like, how much power do they really have over
nothing.
The United States?
Nothing. They don't have. I mean, look. if when you go to a foreign country, if you go to another country, it's foreign. When you go to another country, you have to get certain vaccines. Okay, it depends on the country you're going into. So to enter the country, they do sometimes require shots for certain things. Just try to travel, and you'll see. Having said that, there are going to be some countries that will require the vax, and that's normal. So they just added to that. So in a sense, there's always been vax passports. It's on your passport or it's on your papers or whatever when you go to another country. As far as internally, there's going to be no vax passport for the United States. It's never going to happen. I've been telling people that for 2 years. So this is just, they can't force you papers. You want to talk about an injunction from a court, try enforcing some international rule that some group has made somewhere and impose it on American citizens, and watch how fast, in an executive order, watch how fast a federal court stops that. The ink won't be dry. So don't worry about it, everybody. You're not going to have to do that. Just relax on that.
No, that's a good, I know a lot of people get scared when you start talking about the World Economic Forum, right? And all that stuff that they try to scare people with, like they have control of the entire world with just like one person. So that's a good perspective on it. I have a very important question for you. And this question has come up several times.
Sure.
I hope you're prepared for it.
Okay. Let's go for it. All right. I'll answer it. Let's go for it. I'll do the best I can. I'll try my best. Go ahead.
All right. What is your all-time favorite Christmas movie?
Die Hard. Die Hard. Believe it or not. Yeah. Bruce Willis. Die Hard. I have to. I'm honest. I think my all-time favorite as a kid was probably the 1951 version of A Christmas Carol with Alistair Sim. I think that's excellent. And then I also enjoyed the original Miracle on 34th Street. But I love A Christmas Story. I think that's great. I didn't see that till years after it was made, but it's sort of like an adult favorite of mine. I like A Christmas Story, but I'd have to say really probably my favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard. I watch it every year. I've even been to the theaters to see it on Christmas. It
That's
usually plays. Yeah, it's a classic movie. And the first sequel's okay. And, I kind of wish they had done more like that, but it's not as good as the original. The original Die Hard is fantastic. You can't watch it with your kids. I don't recommend it to children or people who are a little sensitive to violence and whatnot. But it is my favorite.
There's a little bit
and
of
potty mouths. Yeah, if you don't like bad language, don't watch it. But it's definitely my favorite. Today, I would say my favorite Christmas movie. I watch it this time of year all the time. Like I say, I go to the theaters. I'll watch it at home, and then I'll go to the theaters. They typically play it at the classic theaters, so I'll go there and check it out and have a good time, and then go out to eat later and talk about it like I just been to this big premiere. It's kind of cool, actually. I just like the movie, and I think Bruce Willis does great. It's my favorite movie with Bruce Willis in it. So, that and The Sixth Sense. So I like The Sixth Sense and
really
Unbreakable. Oh yeah. I think The Sixth Sense is a great movie. Again, don't watch it with your kids. It's not a children's movie, but yeah, I think The Sixth Sense is a great movie. It was
a good movie. I don't know. I can't pin you with liking The Sixth Sense. I don't know. It's just not your typical type of movie that you like to watch.
You know me too well. I don't typically like horror films, and that's, I guess, technically
it's like a borderline. Yeah. Can you really consider it like a horror film?
Not really. It's not. This is not The Exorcist or anything. No, I wouldn't when you think about it, it's not a real horror movie, but it is a little scary.
It's creepy.
It's creepy. It's suspenseful. I do not recommend it. I think it's rated PG-13. I don't know. Oh no, maybe it is rated R. I'm not even sure. But so I do not watch it with your kids. But it's a good. I like that. I've seen it several times. It's well made. I like a well made movie with a good cast and a good story, and it's original. It's got some real twists to it and stuff. And so I think it's a pretty good movie. I'm trying to think the name of the other one with the autistic child. with him. That's another good one with him. I can't think of the title right now. Oh boy. I mean, I forgot. That's another one of my favorite movies with him. I like him in Unbreakable. I think he's great in Unbreakable. That's a kind of a different movie as well. I like Bruce Willis. I mean, and I feel really bad about what's happened to him. And, I wish him well and pray for him. And, he's really an American icon, really. I mean, he's one of the best action stars in the history of Hollywood and just a great all around guy, I think. And, he's been in some of my favorite movies. That's why I like him so much. I can sit there and go, yeah, I've really never seen a movie with him I thought was boring.
Mercury Rising.
Mercury Rising. Yes. That's a great, again, not for kids, not a family film, but just a great, like I call it more like a detective / cop movie. It's like a detective story.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's got a mystery. It's all a mystery to it. Great cast again, great acting. But Die Hard, without a question, it's like it's something you do. You sit down, you have Christmas dinner, you put on, you're listening to Christmas music, then you go inside and you watch Die Hard with the family. Kind of like if you're my family, you go watch it
with some family members.
With some family members, right? You just put the kids to bed. You put Baby Max to bed. So
yeah. I wouldn't recommend showing that to Baby Max.
No, it's not for him. So, but
he's watching Blue's Clues for Christmas.
Yeah. But no, it's those are that's my favorite. So, movie. So if you're an adult, and you like action films on top of it, I'd recommend it to you. It's a good movie if you've never seen it. So, like I said, it is a classic. The sequel was pretty good. But it's like, I don't like it because it's just too much. There's too much profanity in it. There's too much, I don't like the storyline as much either. Yeah. There's parts, I kind of give it like on a scale of like 1 to 5 stars. I'd give it like 3. The first one I give 5. The second one I give like 3, maybe 3.5. And then the series got progressively worse. And I just said, I don't even think, I wouldn't give more than 2 stars to the other one. So I just I've only watched them like once each after that. I'm like, yeah, these are not as good, But
what are your thoughts on sticking on the movie thing? What are your thoughts on the new Indiana Jones coming out?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's been a lot of talk on the internet about that. There have been some really big podcast guys that have really done some good jobs covering it. I think that from all indications, it's not going to be that good. You don't know it until you see it, but the feedback is that, from what I understand, there's been like 5 or 6 different endings, and every test they've done with an audience has been negative. And almost every single ending, they have either Indy dying or Indy turning over his hat and bullwhip to someone else, and it's just been met with negative reaction. So it's not looking good, and I hope Disney, that's why the film's being delayed. Whenever films are being delayed for so long, there's something wrong. And that's never a good sign. That's like when video games are delayed. It's never a good sign. It means that there's going to be something wrong. And I hope that they can fix it, because I would really hate I'm a big Indiana Jones fan, and I would really hate to see Indy go out with a limp. Well,
I hope they don't do to him what they did to Han Solo.
Oh, please. That's the thing. I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but from what I've been hearing, and you guys could hear it online yourself, you can do your research. That's been some of the endings that they've been looking at. I'm like, that's never going to sell. I mean, people will get up and leave the theater. I know I would. So I'd never go back and watch it.
Harrison Ford would get on board with that, because
he's a
character.
There's a guy who like Bruce Willis, I've seen so many of his movies, and most of my favorite films are actually with Harrison Ford. I mean, like the original Star Wars movies, the original Indiana Jones trilogy, and, Air Force One, Patriot Games. I mean, my goodness, this guy's been in some really, Witness. I mean, that was, I think, was Best Picture. I mean, he's been in some really great movies, and I recommend all those films, I mean, depending on the one I just mentioned, is either you can watch it with your family or you can't. So always check the rating. But, you know, there's, and I don't like everything he's in either, but there's a guy who, you know, he's different. He's, you know, and he's, I don't know, he's got this control over his characters, and I'm sure he made deals with Disney to come back as Han Solo. One of the things he wanted to do is he wanted to have the character die. So he demanded that, and of course George Lucas, when he was in charge of Lucasfilm, never agreed to that. It's an interesting little story too, because a lot of people don't realize with Return of the Jedi, he wanted Han Solo to die. First of all, he didn't want to come back because the reason in Empire that they put him in carbon freeze at the end was because that was supposed to be the end of Han Solo. Like, he was done with the character, and then they started working on early drafts of Return of the Jedi, and they wanted to bring Solo back, and Lucas had to actually send someone to talk to him to kind of convince him, like a mutual friend, to come back. And one weekend he decided to come back, so they brought him back. And then Ford went to Lucas with the proposal, hey, listen, why don't we just, that's a joke, like, why don't we just kill him off? It'll make it more meaningful. So you're going to bring him out of carbon freeze to kill him. And, you know, that wouldn't have made any sense to me. But Lucas's reply was classic. It was basically, there's no future in dead Han Solo toys. So, you know, that was what Lucas was looking at. He was looking at the merchandise.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that was going to be a killer for the merchandise. So that was out. You know, but anyway, he's always wanted to kill the character off. He's got this thing where he doesn't like the character of Han Solo too much from a creative point of view. And it's funny because he loves Indiana Jones. Doesn't like Solo, which were both created by the same person, George Lucas, and they're essentially the same person. Right. I mean, it's really the same character, just slightly different. And I always laughed about that. I'm trying, okay, you think that there's so much depth to Jones, but there's no depth to Solo. I guess he kind of, like, if you really want to be strict about it, you go, well, Solo's this kind of like this rogue that travels around the galaxy, and Indiana Jones is a you know, has a family, as a father, a son. He's had relationships. He's a teacher and all this other stuff. And I guess he felt there's more depth to the character or something. But I don't see them as really any different. They're the same person, really, and they're played by the same person. That's largely why, I think. But you know, it's that's the history with Ford and those characters there. I mean, it's a little brief history with them anyways, but yeah, I mean, and I have a lot of respect for him. He's Ford is, what is he going to be? He's 80 and he still flies planes, and he's still doing things that people don't even do at 30, you know? And so, you know, he's pretty athletic, but
you're going to go see it regardless, right?
Oh yeah, I'll be there opening day. I already have plans to be there opening day. As long as I hope they don't change the date. I think it's coming out in June. I wish they'd push it forward to May, Memorial Day weekend, because that's when George Lucas used to. That's another thing about Disney's takeover of Lucasfilm. Is like Lucasfilm used to always release its Indiana Jones and Star Wars movies on Memorial Day weekend. It was a tradition that went back to the 70s. And Disney never does that. They avoid it, probably because they're trying to avoid the bloodbath, the movie Bloodbath that takes place at that time. But I always felt it's not a prudent move, because it's like June, like, what's going on in June? Okay, nothing. And and on top of it, it's not tradition. I like tradition. So, you know, that's another thing. But if you guys are ever interested, watch some of the recent interviews with George Lucas. He talks about Disney in a very less than flattering way. So he's got his own opinions about them, you know, and really that.
I'm sure he's not happy with what they've done with his babies. You know,
no, he's not happy. He's not happy at all. No, he's not happy at all what they've done with it. So, you know, it's really, yeah, it's, and I don't blame him. And, you know, I guess if somebody offered you, you know, I would have never have sold. I think you and I had this conversation. I would have never have sold. If I was George Lucas and I knew I've had like 6 or 7 or 800 million in the bank, and I owned one of the largest independent studios, Lucasfilm, you know, in the world, which has a history of making some great movies. You know, you have Disney come over with its billions and offer you 4.5 billion, and you go, would you have sold? No, I would not have sold. I would have never, if I did sell, I would have retained creative approval on the
Yeah.
on the products. So they would have had to have gotten, in addition to everything else, they would have had to have always gotten my permission before they did a change in the characters themselves that I created. So I would have retained that in the contract. But I would have never, otherwise I wouldn't have sold, because I don't, the way I would have seen it, it's like it's not worth $4 billion. It's not about the money, it's about the principle and the character. And so,
knowing Disney, they probably didn't even give him that option. I mean, who knows what was in the contract?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, that's all. Yeah, that's all internal. I mean, who knows, right? So, but that's the history with that one there. But that was a good question. I mean, thank you for whoever asked that question, because that was really got me into.
See, we cover everything on MAGA Bytes.
We cover everything. I'm telling you, seriously, we talk about, it's like you get me talking about movies too, and I'll sit here for days and talk film history with you. It's just a hobby of mine, and and that's something I really always enjoyed. So, but anyways, is there any? We have anything else? Does that wrap it up?
That's wrapping it up for today.
That's a wrap. All right. Well, listen, everybody, it has been wonderful as always, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. I know I shall, because we're going to call it a day, and have a blessed week. I hope the Lord blesses you guys, and do contact Roxy and ask for details on the discount to become a member of Maximus Premium. It's only for a few days, so do send her an email. Do it right now. Roxy Balboa, the number 1 @gmail.com, or you can message her directly on Telegram or Twitter at Roxy_Balboa, and just give her a holler and ask about that. If you want to reserve a seat for my upcoming seminar late next month, do so by contacting the Angels and Warriors. And just
I also want to mention that we also have e-cards on the website as well. If you guys are looking for a unique gift to give to somebody, if you want to give them the gift of Maximus Premium, go ahead. It's on the website. Gift cards.
We have gift cards now. It's amazing. That's something else. So I totally forgot about that. So yes, you can give a gift card right now for someone, and a lot of people have done that. So which is really sweet. So you can give a gift for your loved one for the holidays to join Maximus Premium or whatever. So you do that.
Yeah.
Anyways, and those gift cards will come in handy. Of course, it'll become a very much more popular feature when we do the merchandise. Again, we're getting to it. Don't worry, it's coming. So they're coming. It's all coming.
And lots of things in store for 2023. So we, like Max was saying, we're going to be focusing on. Well, he's going to be focusing on the different investigations into Biden. He's going to be talking about different strategies as far as beating Dems at their own game and winning in specific areas, focusing on the areas where there's a lot of potential. So there's going to be a lot of strategic things going on, a lot of hope, a lot of movement, a lot of action. So get in on the fun with 30% off.
That's it. With 30% off. That's the truth. You guys, you're not going to be disappointed. You're not going to be disappointed. Well, listen, it has been a pleasure again, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Be well, and I'll see you around the campfire. And take care of yourselves.
Take care, everybody. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks, Roxy.
Thank you, Max. Have a wonderful day.
You too, hon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.